So I got a comment on my YouTube page this morning, and I get these comments multiple times a week. But I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to address it and say some things I haven't said in a video. The comment said, "Acknowledge the allegations against you. Stop being a coward. If they're true, then take responsibility for them. If they're not, then make a greater effort to defend your image. Innocent people don't sit quietly and hope the awful things people say about them will go away."
You Did that hurt? You hit me in the ear!
I didn't want to make this video, as I don't know Max Landis, but I have met him, and I liked him. I found him quite charming, and his enthusiasm to be infectious.
If I could give you one piece of business and personal advice for the entertainment industry, it is this, okay? And this is the one big thing if you're actually pursuing an entertainment career, whether it be acting, writing, directing, creating anything, YouTube, fuck it, anything, theater to music, everything, is do not talk about or post about meetings you're having. Don't talk about things you're excited about that might happen. Don't talk about things that, someone told you were going to happen once. Until something is actually signed and in paper and happening, don't tweet about it, don't post about it, don't tell your friends, don't talk about it to people you meet at parties like it's a done deal. Don't do it!
If you don't know who Max Landis is, then turn this video off. I don't mind having a low view count on this one. Go watch a movie or something.
My name has certain associations with it. Now, there are good associations like tall and creative, and there are bad associations like the fact that I am the worst. That allows people to use ad hominems to attack me instead of engaging with the work.
Max Landis is a screenwriter. The biggest film he's written is the Will Smith and an Orc film, Bright, which of all the films of his I've seen, it's the one I like the least. But he also wrote Victor Frankenstein, which is a retelling of the Frankenstein story from the point of view of the hunchback who isn't in Mary Shelley's book. American Ultra, which is a good fun action comedy, which in my opinion just rattles past its logical ending. And then there's Chronicle, which is like a found footage superhero film and head and shoulders above the others I've mentioned. Despite what people will tell you, none of these films are awful. I'd watch them all again. Maybe not Bright.
So there was a rumor that American Werewolf would be joining the Dark Universe. And
I didn't even hear that. Is that true?
It was a little while ago, a long time ago. And I heard this rumor, and then I heard that Robert Kirkman and David Alpert, one of my mentors, a guy who has shaped my career, who has shaped the way I view the film industry, who has shaped my personal life, is still shaping it. This is not his creation. I'm not all the way there yet, David, so I'm sorry if this seems like I'm representing you, but a guy who was my manager approached me and said, "Hey, we want to go after American Werewolf to produce it." And I said, "Well, if I do that, it'll be the ultimate sort of abdication of every accusation of nepotism I've ever faced. It would literally be stapling my face to a bullseye. And it's for a studio project, a big studio project that I'm very excited about, but that, studio projects come in and out. I've developed 2 things with Ron Howard. Where are they? I wrote the Space Mountain movie for Disney. I don't even like to talk about stuff like this publicly anymore because you never know.
Right.
But then I was like, you know what, fuck it. Yeah, I want to do American Werewolf.
Did you?
Anyway, Max was doing rather well for himself in Hollywood, selling lots of scripts on spec, which is not easy to do. But if his YouTube channel was anything to go by, then he's very good at pitching ideas.
I want to set us in about year 2. Let's say Superman's been around for 2 years. Now, my Superman knows he's an alien, but doesn't really know the Fortress of Solitude, not around. He's never met another Kryptonian. The only evidence of Kryptonian technology that he has is the pod that he came to Earth in. So he doesn't know what Jor-El looks like. He doesn't know really what happened on Krypton.
Unlike pretty much all of Hollywood's screenwriters, Max Landis actually has a presence. People knew his face because he was happy to be seen.
I'm the only screenwriter in the world who dives in front of cameras. It's me, Max Landis. But that's because I'm a director now too, and that's more director personality. Lord knows, Kevin Smith will give his opinion on anything. I'm trying to get to that point where people don't even want to hear my opinion. Max Landis again.
He was forthright with his opinion both in interviews and on his YouTube channel. He even made one excellent video, or it could possibly be considered a short film, called The Death and Return of Superman.
There's something my dad made up, which is he told me when I was little and I was frustrated about rules in movies. He said, how do you kill a vampire? And I was like, stake through the heart, garlic, sunlight. And my dad was like, no, you can kill a vampire however the fuck you want. Because vampires don't fucking exist. You can make up rules for any kind of thing you want.
Aww. In the film, Landis makes the point that DC chickening out of actually killing off Superman properly and having him reborn negates death as a narrative tool. If someone can die and come back, then death has no value.
In 2015, I was right about Disney's Star Wars. In 2012, I was right about Man of Steel. I've been wrong about many other things and decisions I've made in my life, but I'm also right about Carly Rae Jepsen.
In 2017, Landis wrote an essay, which later became the basis of this tongue-in-cheek lecture, about Carly Rae Jepsen, in which he claims to have noticed a pattern throughout the singer's work.
I worked with this amazing artist, Bonnie McKee, who I worked on Kiss with.
Bonnie's great too.
She's fantastic.
You work with some incredible people. I love them.
And we got in the room and we were just both in a really weird mood, and we wrote a song about basically being alone and
keep going, please.
trying to find a delicate way of saying this.
Do it.
It rhymes with contemplation.
Masturbation?
Thank you.
And it was roughly around this time that the breaking of the Harvey Weinstein story changed Hollywood.
What have you done that you didn't want to do, but did anyway because you knew it was wrong?
An article was published on the Daily Beast, accusing the screenwriter of what on YouTube is oft referred to by its initials, SA. If you don't know what that is, I suggest you rewind and press pause. I don't know much about the Daily Beast with regards to the quality of their journalism. Also, I don't know who these women are, or should I say woman, as the first article only quotes one person directly, and she seems to be testifying on behalf of others. In a later article, it states that there are 8 women who had grievances of a sexual and or emotional nature against Landis. Of course, when you read those articles, the instant reaction is an emotional one. How could somebody do that? What a monster. But you also have to remember that context is king. And this was happening in a world where possibly the most powerful man in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein, had just been found out to be a predator. And the metaphorical taste for blood was now on the press's lips. I have heard this referred to as St. George and the Dragon in Retirement Syndrome. The patron saint of England is St. George. Not actually an Englishman and probably never set foot in this country, but in the story he is alleged to have slain the biggest and scariest dragon in the land. And jolly good for him, well done. Some versions of the story have him saving a princess in doing so. And that's where most versions end. But in this one, after all the praise has died down, St. George found himself missing the limelight. So he finds another dragon, not quite as big, but still a dragon, so he kills it. And after the praise for killing that one ebbs away, St. George finds himself killing smaller and smaller dragons, until such time that dragons are extinct. Whereafter St. George can be found waving his sword at nothing at all.
My public shaming, the Daily Beast article specifically, is some of them are from people I don't know or have never met. The story about me from college is not true. It's not supported by the digital record. But I should go into the allegations that are real now. So I'm going to go back to reading. My most serious allegations are from over 11 years ago. They involve a relationship I was in for over 2 years where I was a toxic partner. I've discussed this in depth in public beyond anything I've ever been comfortable with. It's awful. And I was 25. Unmedicated and just unbelievably selfish and horrible to my partner. I treated her, I wasn't the white trash idea of like the redneck, you're a dumb bitch, you can't do anything. It was just more that I didn't care about her feelings and I cheated on her constantly. And then I would break up with her and we'd get into these long screaming fights and then she'd come back to me and I'd go back to her, and then we'd get in another screaming fight, and then we'd get drunk, and she'd be sobbing at a party, and I just did not treat her with any kind of respect. And that was someone who I loved.
No, we are not in the St. George waving his sword at nothing phase. I'm sure there are still some fairly big dragons out there to be slain. But by Landis's own admittance, he was far from perfect in the romance department. And some of the allegations were true, others were not.
So recently on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast, Max and Bret joke that nepotism doesn't apply to screenwriters for some reason, despite Max literally saying he got his first jobs because his father handed a screenplay he had written to an agent he knew in the industry.
I said, well, I really want to be a screenwriter. What can we do? How can we do this? Can you help me? Is there any way you can help me? Because you are my connection in the industry. So my dad did show it to an agent. And this agent was not my dad's agent, which is weird. My dad didn't show it to his agents. But the agent then emailed me and said, hey, this is good. You should try to be in the market for a manager. And so while I'm in college, like being weird and drunk with my friends and being this like outside loser, I'm now 20 and I'm 19, 20, I'm taking manager meetings. And my dad does nepotism. He does 2 nepotisms in my career.
This is where I have issue, particularly with this one YouTuber. But she is not the only person to retroactively decide that Max Landis is not good at writing because he's not a nice person, and only gets work because director John Landis is his father. I can assure you, being nice has no effect on one's writing ability. Some of the worst writers I've ever read have been lovely people. And having a father in the industry might get you meetings, but it does not get movies made. Imagine if my father was, I don't know, let's say Steve Martin, and I wanted to be a comedian just like dear old dad. Steve could probably pull a few strings to get me some gigs here and there, but when I'm on stage, I've got to make the audience laugh. If someone were to book out Madison Square Garden just on the strength of who my dad was, then it's going to be a huge financial risk and one which will end in ruin. And bear in mind that John Landis hasn't directed a film since 2010's Burke and Hare. If he had such power to get films made, how come he hasn't directed a film in 15 years?
I came to London and I met with all these independent producers because I wasn't too happy with what studios were offering. And it's a very different business, time. And if you want to do something of quality, you really have to compromise on the budget and you have to, it's a struggle.
People don't mention that Josh Trank, the director of Chronicle, is the son of Oscar-winning documentary maker Richard Trank. Or Melanie Griffiths is the daughter of Tippi Hedren. Or Duncan Jones's dad was David Bowie. Did Lily Rose Depp only get acting work because of her parents? Maybe that's why she's in Yoga Hosers, but she got cast in Nosferatu because she's good.
So in 2017, the screenwriter Max Landis posted to his YouTube channel a video teasing his latest project, a website with the URL ascarnooneelsecансee.com, which housed what Max called a living document or manifesto, all to explore the thematic patterns of pop singer Carly Rae Jepsen's music and lyrics.
I am going to spend a couple of minutes looking at this video, as it's the first thing that comes up when you write the words Max Landis into YouTube. It comes up before his own channel, and at the time of recording it has over 200,000 views. I've only seen the name of the channel written down, so I'm unsure if it's pronounced Medusone or Medusone. I'm going to stick with the latter, and forgive me if that's incorrect.
You'll see as we move forward that Max speaking on something he doesn't fully understand is a part of the Max Landis pattern. His hot takes are often communicated with the kind of enthusiastic confidence that could easily trick a person into thinking this man must know what he's talking about.
The setup and title of Medusone's video takes issue with the document Max Landis wrote analysing the musical back catalogue of Carly Rae Jepsen. This video was made before Max Landis' lecture video on the same subject, from which I have already shown clips.
If you read A Scar No One Else Can See, the first thing you will notice, as well as the second, third, and fourth thing, because he doesn't shut the fuck up about it, is that Max Landis is absolutely convinced that everybody else in the world thinks of pop music so dismissively that Max doing an in-depth analysis of Carly Rae Jepsen's lyrics should probably have him labeled insane.
I think there was probably hyperbole on the part of the author, but the YouTuber takes issue with the notion of it being strange to take pop music seriously. Clearly in her circles, analysis, or in this case over-analysis of pop music is commonplace. Certainly in my circles it is not. And I think Max Landis was probably pitching his document at my demographic more than hers.
While listening to Carly Rae Jepsen's 2015 album Emotion, Max Landis noticed that Carly's songwriting is thematically cohesive. As a lyricist, she typically writes with a distinct perspective, one which shows her as a somewhat shy, single-minded prospective lover who's often pursuing a relationship with someone without a clear mutual interest in her. As the narrator of her songs, Carly gravitates toward fantasy, often dreaming of a love affair that has yet to take place, which leaves questions as to if Carly's potential lover even wants her at all. Carly's lyrics frequently contain themes of escapism, obsession, and heartbreak to the point it could be said that Carly is always singing about a particular kind of relationship, one in which she pursues a romanticized vision of monogamy, typically with a lover whose commitment to her is unsettled, which leads to her eventual dejection and regret.
That is a pretty succinct retelling of the Landis theory, but then it doesn't have the supporting evidence that the document does. But Medusa claims that Max Landis is not the first to note the pattern in Carly Rae Jepsen's work, but also the pattern doesn't fit the entirety of her work.
I don't give a fuck about music criticism. I listen to pop on the radio and occasionally find a niche band on YouTube I get obsessed with. I don't read music reviews or go to music websites or even actively seek out new bands. I am your basic bitch Kiss FM guy.
Max admits that he is not someone who regularly does this kind of analysis with other artists, and believe me, it shows. Still, he habitually speaks on pop music in general as if he's coming from a place of authority, despite already admitting that he isn't.
So, Max Landis says that he's not an authority, and the YouTuber believes that that is self-evident. I don't see a problem there.
If you know Katie's discography past that one song and you think about it for more than a second, you'll realize that she doesn't really have a pattern of only singing about mutual affection.
It's almost as if Max Landis wasn't an expert. If only someone had told you.
With only one exception, Carly Rae Jepsen does not sing about abstract concepts. A ridiculous thing to say when your entire 149-page manifesto is arguing that Carly Rae sings about 7 major themes throughout her work, when all those 7 major themes are themselves abstract concepts. What Max means to say is that when Carly Rae sings about abstract concepts, like temptation, limerence, secrets, or any of the other themes and sub-themes Max identifies, she puts those themes into a one-way correspondent format that hints at a larger story being told in second person.
Credit where it is due, Medusa does a very good job of showing that she knows more about pop music as a genre than Max Landis. She certainly knows more than I do.
So sometimes Max's analysis of Carly Rae Jepsen's music is wrong because he's overestimating the uniqueness of Carly's work.
If this video essay were to end here, I wouldn't really have much issue with it. I don't have anything against Carly Rae Jepsen. I've listened to her music, and I would put it in the sweet spot of things I neither love nor hate. And because of that, none of it really stands out in my mind. The fact that two people have differing opinions on her work means very little to me. Art is open to interpretation, and that includes misinterpretation. But this video is 4 essays in one. The first one we've just seen highlights of, but the second is a denigration of Max as a writer.
He's also a notably unskilled writer. Now notice, I did say unskilled. As many issues as I have with Max, I'm going to be as fair to him as I can. He's not totally untalented. He maybe does have above average writing skills compared to the average person. And I've heard Chronicle is pretty good. But for someone of his professional success, who at the time of this project's release had written the most expensive Netflix original film to date, Max Landis sucks to an infuriating degree.
When one says talent, I understand that as a natural ability that is independent of effort or desire, and skill is an ability which is acquired through learning and experience. Writing, the same as drawing, is always a skill. No one comes out of the womb with the ability to write. It's also a skill to play an instrument. But perfect pitch is a talent, and it can be identified in the brainwaves of people who can't even play.
Max made the point that you can't actually judge the quality of a screenplay based off the quality of the final film. And okay, fair enough. But I don't need to look at Max's filmography to conclude that he's a shit writer. His online presence gives me plenty of ammo.
I would argue that one does have to watch his films, or maybe even read his screenplays before judging his film writing. Writing essays is a very different skill, and perhaps one that Landis hasn't acquired yet. But it's like judging a newspaper journalist by the strength of their poetry. These things are just not the same.
The fact that Max Landis frequently misuses punctuation is laid bare, and I'm not trying to be an asshole about this. You can go through my blog posts and find plenty of errors, because no one else is editing me, and sometimes I get so focused on communicating a certain point that I miss blatant mistakes. But some of the mistakes that Max makes in this document are so glaringly obvious that one read-through should have notified this very professionally successful writer to his original oversights.
Maybe one could blame Max Landis' pop knowledge on the Dunning-Kruger effect. Maybe hubris led him not to hire a proofreader. But I hope that I would be more charitable to someone if my writing fell foul to the same technical flaws as theirs. Glass houses.
In writing about the narrative acts Max believes you can categorize Carly Rae Jepsen's songs within, he says something that doesn't even make much sense. Writing,
songs occasionally take place in the transition between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, but never 1 and 3.
Isn't the transition between 1 and 3 just 2?
No, it isn't. The easiest way to explain this is with a Venn diagram. Here we have acts 1 and 2. This is the overlap between those two acts, where the song has elements of both 1 and 2. Here is Act 3. This is the overlap between 2 and 3, where the music has characteristics of both. There is no overlap between 1 and 3, as they share no characteristics. Act 2 is its own category. And therein is a lesson in not noticing one's own hubris. It happens to us all.
So who is Max's daddy, John? John Landis was and is a big deal in the film industry.
So this is the third essay in the video, and it is the most egregious, because it's not about Max Landis, it's about his father, John Landis.
John's reputation took a bit of a hit, though, after he became responsible for the death of 3 people, 2 of whom were children, on the set of Twilight Zone the movie.
Which is not what happened, because he wasn't found responsible. He and the other people who were tried with him were all acquitted after a lengthy and thorough trial.
When I first started putting this video together, I wasn't gonna include anything about the helicopter accident.
Good, because it's immaterial and happened before Max Landis was even born.
But then I read some of Max's Medium posts and heard how he talked about the incident on Bret Easton Ellis's podcast.
This is nothing more than poisoning the well. And it's something I've spoken about before, so I'm not going to spend much time on it here.
As Max points out in his interview with Bret Easton Ellis, his father was later acquitted following a lengthy trial. But Max's implication that this naturally means John Landis isn't actually responsible for the death of those 3 people is stupid and wrong.
No, it's not. The burden of proof is on the accuser. The defendant is innocent until proven guilty. If no one is proved guilty, then they are not. You might think he's guilty, but now the burden of proof is on you. Got any evidence? Great, take it to court then.
If the measure of who bears responsibility for an event is built solely upon whomever a jury deems legally guilty, then absolutely no one can be held responsible for this crash.
Yep, and no one was. Everyone involved will have had their opinion on who was at fault, and I bet no one was blaming themselves. There were a series of errors on the run-up to the crash. Had any one of those errors happened alone, then the fatalities might have been avoided. But then shoulda, woulda, coulda are the last words of a fool. Let's move on to the last chapter in this video.
You can still think the father-son duo are monstrous people, even if there haven't been any legal consequences for their crimes. But a sub-theme of Max's inability to accept responsibility for himself is Max's idea that a lack of consequences automatically equals a lack of wrongdoing.
Here we go, the last section, which is basically a list of wrongdoings that Max Landis has been accused of.
What does any of this have to do with Carly Rae Jepsen? On the surface, nothing.
It's not my place to defend Max Landis' treatment of women, because I have no grounds to do so. Everything said about him could very well be true, or it could all be bullshit. Or, by Max Landis' word, it could be somewhere between the two. At the time of recording, no case has been taken to either criminal or civil court. If some of the worst events and the allegations levelled at him are true, then a criminal case would stand. And I don't know why you wouldn't do that. As I said before, I don't know Max Landis, or any of the accusers. And unless you know them, and I mean really know them personally, no one should take a firm opinion on the events until they are scrutinised in a court. This is not like the music of Carly Rae Jepsen. I can, however, defend Max Landis artistically. He has written some very good films. And his YouTube fanfiction series, The Kryptonian Epic, is really good, and I don't even like superheroes. I will even defend him writing poorly considered essays about pop music. Because if an artist doesn't fail every now and again, then they're not trying something new. Had Medusa quit while she was ahead and left her criticisms purely about the scar no one can see essay, then she would have left Landis looking foolish and ill-informed. But because she wanted to confirm the kill, she tripped over into ad hominem. Something that I earnestly hope I've not done in my rebuttal. Please don't contact or harass the people in this video on this platform or any other. You're fucking grown-ups, just act like it. I've not monetized this video as it just doesn't feel right to do so. If you wish to give your money to someone, then pick a domestic abuse charity. I think all parties contained herein will agree that it will be better spent there.
Now, it goes without saying that it's been 11 years. I've done a tremendous amount of work on myself in the intervening years. You've probably noticed if you watch me, even my online presence has changed because I've done a tremendous amount of therapy and I got medicated. There are people, I've had opportunities in the 5 years since the first shaming to apologize and to make things right with people I really feel I've hurt. And there are some people I know will never talk to me again. And they'll never talk to me again, and they're right. What can I say? They're right. I don't blame them. But then there are other people I've had the opportunity to make things right with in person because they didn't participate in this sick internet thing. But I don't want to be victim right now. I just want to... I've had so many incredible experiences in the last 5 years since I was canceled. Canceled like a TV show. Because I'm entertainment and I'm not a person. The purpose of propaganda is to effectively make people view another person as not human, but I am human, and the truth is people change.
I didn't want to make this video, as I don't know Max Landis. But I have met him. And I liked him. I found him quite charming and his enthusiasm to be infectious. But I could be wrong about him. But it's not for me to judge him guilty.